Can any NFL team go from worst to first? We're exploring that possibility today on the Locked On NFL Scouting Podcast.
You are Locked On NFL Scouting with the Draft Dudes, your daily podcast for NFL and college football scouting. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's better than this? It's guys being dudes here on the Locked On NFL Scouting Podcast. We're the Draft Dudes. I'm Joe Marino from Locked On Bills. He's Kyle Krabs from Locked On Dolphins. And we are your NFL experts here with you daily to talk team building across the league on the Locked On NFL Scouting Podcast with the Draft Dudes, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Want to issue a big thank you, shout out, and welcome to our everydayers. Those of you who never miss a single episode, we appreciate y'all being here very, very much. Today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply.
Joe, happy what day to you?
17 days until the first full slate of Sunday afternoon games in the NFL.
And happy 2 weeks till the start of the 2024 regular season, because we have Baltimore and Kansas City.
Yeah.
2 weeks from
today. And then we have, it's the Eagles and Packers
on Friday, which is 2 weeks from tomorrow. I can do that math. Packers
by $1 billion, right?
Undoubtedly.
Yeah.
By the largest of margins there's ever been a margin of victory in any sport ever in the history of the planet.
Be a real shame if somebody didn't understand the context of that, but
we need to appease the Packers fans who are winning the next 10 Super Bowls, according to them. We'll look at the NFC North and the rest of the divisions, because today on the show, we're looking at the teams that finished in last place last season and how likely they are to jump to first place this season. Before we do it, do you think we'll find someone? Regardless of if we think we're going to find someone, does somebody actually do it?
I think there's interesting conversations to be had, and I can make the strong case for at least one of these teams.
That's kind of where I'm at, too.
Yeah.
So, with that in mind, let's jump in with our division.
Oh, great. The least likely team to do it, right?
Is that true? Is it true that that's the least likely team to do it?
Yes.
I think my counterpoint would be there's still three teams that will be competitive. So what if they beat each other up and the record for the division total is lower than some of the Western more divisions?
I think when you take all the last, no, I'm not going to say that. I'm not going to say that.
We're going to do that at the end, I think.
Right. Yeah.
Okay. The New England Patriots finished in last place. They had 4 wins. Their over under on FanDuel this year is 4.5. Right. Buffalo's at 10.5. The Dolphins and Jets are both at 9.5. Outlook doesn't look particularly good this year because it's a foundational year. And the good news for New England is they seem to understand it's a foundational year. But when that's the case, I think that sets the stage for you to maybe overachieve and win 6 games, beat some divisional rivals that you maybe weren't supposed to on paper, but the winning 11 is at minimum the number that wins this division this year. Is that a fair statement?
I think 11 puts you in a good chance to do it. Yeah.
Kind of the same situation you had last year.
Right.
So Patriots, I don't think are touching, in spite of having a last place schedule, I don't think they're going to touch that stratosphere of wins this season.
Yeah. I think they will need to significantly overachieve on top of 3 other teams significantly underachieving. And that's just not a great recipe. And I'm sure that's going to be true for a lot of these conversations that we're going to have. But I think it's the most drastic as it relates to New England. And what's difficult for New England is you think about the recipe of defense, special teams, running the ball. Mm-hmm. Boy, do we have questions about all of that.
For them specifically.
Right, for them specifically. And they don't have a quarterback that's going to be able to overcome that type of stuff. And this offensive line, this left side of the offensive line it's a problem. Brother, it's a massive problem.
Which is crazy given how much they have invested between the last 2 years?
Yeah. Too much. It's too much to overcome. I don't think they're going to be an absolute joke of a situation, but
here's a more fun question for New England.
Yeah.
Do they not finish in last?
Oh, I think they finish in last. The Jets won 7 games without Aaron Rodgers last year.
Mm-hmm.
Their backup this year is Tyrod Taylor. The floor of that team is much higher.
Yeah, they'll probably score 75 more points this season just based off of Tyrod Taylor if he has to play, because they scored 268 points last year.
Here's the fun. I think this is a fun way to look at it. Between Josh Allen, Tua, and Aaron Rodgers, if one of them had a catastrophic season-ending injury, which team is most likely to be a competitor for the Patriots to finish last? I think it might be the Bills.
I'd be inclined to agree with you, because if Josh went down,
buddy,
he's the solo continuity thing that exists, with Joe Brady having an offseason to instill what he wants the vision of the offense to look like. Steph Diggs isn't here. I think you said on the division preview, I guess I'll spoil this part, the only wide receiver on the roster that's caught a pass from Josh Allen is Khalil Shakir.
That's right.
So everything else is new.
Yeah.
The defense has changes from a personnel standpoint. Yeah, I think if all 3 of them went down, I think the one that would struggle the most would be Buffalo.
Yeah. I think the Bills are a contending team with Josh Allen, and they're a team picking in the top 10 without him. And that part of that is right. Their backup quarterbacks are Ben DiNucci and Anthony Brown, right?
Well, they subscribe to the Tom Moore school of backup quarterbacks, right?
I think I don't know if it's that. I think it's more limited resources, and so if we're going to go tight somewhere, we're going to go do the backup quarterback thing. So they've went through Trubisky, Case Keenum, Kyle Allen, and Josh Allen's been the most durable quarterback in the NFL. Like his consecutive streak of starts is like 50 more than the number 2. But buddy, you don't want to. I guess the good news is the Bills haven't had to find out how good their backup quarterback is.
Right. Unless it's 2020 week 17 and Matt Barkley, crazy on the Dolphins.
Stuff happens.
That's right. We should probably just go to break, because I feel like the North conversation, who is the next division, is one that is going to be a pretty compelling conversation for a worst to first situation. So why don't we come to them on the other side of the break? Stick with us.
The NFL season is here. You want to get to some of these games. Well, if you do, then you got to download the Game Time app. Game Time is the fast and easy way to purchase tickets for all the sports, music, comedy, and theater events near you. I love the app. It's super easy to navigate, and they have so many great features available. They specialize in last-minute tickets. They give you flash deals. They give you a seat view. And one of my favorite things is that you could turn on the all-in pricing and see the full price from the beginning of the purchase. So no surprises coming at the end. So take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONNFL. That's LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off. Download the Game Time app today. Last-minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed.
The 9-8 Cincinnati Bengals finished in last place in the division last year. And they played half the year without Joe Burrow. When you look at Pittsburgh, won their last 3, got hot, made the playoffs in spite of scoring 304 points in 17 games last year, having the same quarterback questions that they had, but with different players. The Cleveland Browns with an excellent defense, but the health of the offense, and that includes offensive tackle. It includes what is going on with Deshaun Watson,
buddy,
who continues to have throwing arm shoulder soreness after an offseason procedure, after an injury to his throwing arm last year, and hasn't played good football for more than 3-game stretch since 2020. And the Baltimore Ravens is a team that had a lot of attrition, both from a roster and a coaching staff perspective. This one feels like it's potentially ripe to actually happen. And it's helped by the fact that Cincinnati themselves still managed to go 9-8 last year.
Yeah, I think them going 9-8 under those circumstances really validates some questions maybe you had about Zach Taylor as a head coach and being able to lead through some adversity. And so with a healthy Joe Burrow, I mean, you certainly want to get Chase back in the mix. Like he's gonna need his guys around him, especially because I mean the tight ends are new, sort of. I know they brought back their guys, but they don't really have a dynamic player there. Third receiver is different. The running back situation is different. Right tackle could be a concern. There's enough questions there. I think he's going to need Chase to be part of this mix. And I certainly there's going to be a conclusion to that at some point. Defensively, I think this team's going to be better. You've heard them talk a lot about Von Bell and his reassertion back into this lineup and how much he's going to mean to it. The Bengals fans told us, don't worry about the safeties. Well, the safeties were a problem last year. Yeah, we were right to worry about them. So we'll go ahead and spike the ball here. But I think that Cincinnati probably has the best case of any team to go from worst to first.
Well, let's look at the schedule too. New England at Kansas City. Okay. Tough one.
Yeah.
Home against Washington. Count that as a win.
They're 2-1 at least.
At Carolina.
Yeah. Wow.
Home against Baltimore.
But wait, hold on. They get Carolina, Washington, and New England
in 3 of their first 4 games. Yeah.
Hey, come on. The NFL said, we know you slow starts every year. We'll go ahead and give you a little help.
We'll help you out a little bit. And then they're home against Baltimore, but then they go at New York Giants.
Come on, baby. What's going on here?
At Cleveland. Okay. Tough game. Home against Philadelphia. Home against the Raiders. At Ravens on a short week. Then you get extra rest before you go to your West Coast trip and play at the Chargers. And then you have your bye. I think it's safe to say Chargers, probably Raiders, Giants, Panthers, Commanders, Patriots feel like slam dunk wins, right? And they'll probably they have a good chance to split with Baltimore, but they get Baltimore out of the way early.
Yeah. Which is good. They have a lot of turnover with that team, so getting them early is good.
Let's say you have 7 going into your bye, so you're 7-4. Okay, and that's I think that's a conservative projection for them. Pittsburgh coming out of the bye, and you're home for that one.
Like it.
Okay, now you're 8. Then you have 2 road games back to back: Dallas and Tennessee.
Get one of them.
Okay, so now you're at 9, and then you're home against Cleveland and Denver.
There's at least 10,
and then you finish at Pittsburgh.
Conservatively, 10 or 11 wins.
Correct.
Yeah,
I think if Baltimore comes back down a little bit, that, again, 11 feels like a number that's going to give you a chance every year.
Right.
And they should be in that ballpark.
With the offensive concerns in Cleveland and Pittsburgh, I think this is going to come down to Baltimore and Cincinnati.
How about the South, which the last place team was the Tennessee Titans, who finished 6-11 last year. New scheme, a lot of new talent. They've been one of the more aggressive teams in free agency, adding a lot of new players into the mix. I think probably the question for them is how quickly it can materialize and come together.
Yeah, particularly the offensive line. I think they got a lot of young talent and new pieces there. Good offensive line coach, obviously, but want to see how that comes. And I think one of the most compelling storylines this year is Will Levis in this offense and what that looks like. Defensively, do they have enough depth? I think their starters are good. Do they have enough depth on the defense? I think Tennessee's going to be a decent team.
They got a brutal first 8 weeks.
Well, outside of the schedule too. I mean, Houston's going to be the team to beat here in this division. I feel like that's what everybody considers. And Jacksonville, I'm sure, would like to remind everybody that they still exist.
Mm-hmm. There's a lot of talent in this division. This isn't the AFC South from 3 years ago.
Yeah, this isn't a division you want to play. These are upstart teams.
The first 8 weeks for Tennessee at Chicago. Interesting game. We don't really know what Chicago's going to be. We'll talk more about Chicago.
What time's that game at? Is that at 1 o'clock?
1 o'clock.
Man, that'd be one I'd like to watch.
And then they have Jets and Packers weeks 2 and 3.
Tough. At
Miami on Monday Night Football.
Oh, that's tough. Those 3 in a row.
Yeah, and then they have their bye week. So you get a week 5 bye, which stinks.
That's not good. Yeah.
Home against Indy, first division game, and then you go at Buffalo, at Detroit.
Buddy.
Yeah, their first 8 weeks is
they might be 2-6.
That's a brutal stretch. Now it softens up. You go Patriots, at Chargers, Vikings, at Houston, at Washington, And then you go Jaguars, Bengals, Colts, Jaguars, Texans, and you have 4 division games in the last 5 weeks to bring you home.
Can you go on a run mid-season, and can you handle your business in the division late? Right. I think it's unlikely, but I don't think this would be a bad football team.
Right. I think that I kind of expect them to be a 7 through 9 win team this year.
Yeah.
And
in year one of this regime, it's okay. That's okay.
And it's just super unfortunate that with all the new, that's what your first half of the season looks like, because that's when you're going to feel it most with all the new pieces.
Yeah. Boy, that's tough. That's brutal, man.
Yeah.
If you can keep it close to 500 through that gauntlet, if you can keep it close to 4 and 4,
good about it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Feel good about it.
Yeah.
The Chargers. Come on. And this was kind of the argument I was making. Like, the Raiders feel like they're in front of them. The Broncos feel like they're in front of them. The Chiefs are definitely in front of everybody. I just don't see the path. You can miss me with the playoff buzz for the Chargers. It's too much to change, too much new personnel, coaching staff, the division. They got a hill to climb.
You kind of been on this for a while. I remember when we did, we've throughout the summer, we of course spend a day on every team.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember Chargers Day, you were very concerned about that football team. Obviously, I mean, they're 5-12 last year, but they lost their last 5. So they were 5-7 at one point.
And Herbert was hurt, so it'd be totally fair.
So, yeah, I guess what your path for the Chargers doing it is it's the coaching overhaul, right? Like, Harbaugh is going to be a better coach than Staley.
Yep.
Herbert's a stud quarterback, and like they can legitimately just run the football and be opportunistic on offense. But like defensively, there's a lot of questions here. I don't know that there's a whole lot of separation between the Raiders, Broncos, and Chargers, but I do feel like the Chargers are behind, which feels weird because they have the best quarterback.
Well, it's for me, it's just the Raiders have a little bit of a runway with last year with Pierce.
Right.
And I think they have a lot more like across the board talent on both sides of the ball combined. It's just not at quarterback. Right. The Broncos with Sean Payton, Bo Nix winning that starting job. Imagine being surprised that the guy who highly executed and officially executed a scheme throw offense at Oregon goes to Sean Payton and executes the plays as they're designed and wins the starting job. Right. I guess the silver lining that I would point to for the Chargers, I like looking at the schedules for these because that's a lot of kind of capturing the magic of getting runs for teams to take advantage and go on runs and be competitive late in the year. Here's their road games this year. At Carolina, at Pittsburgh, at Denver, at Arizona. Any of those sound impossible?
No.
Okay. Then you're at Cleveland. That's November 3rd. So at least you're not in a cold weather situation there. At Atlanta, at Kansas City. That's a tough one too. And then at Patriots, at Raiders.
It's pretty digestible, right?
Your road schedule is very digestible. Now, as a West Coast team, and you have to come east once, twice, 3 times, 4 times. That's a part of the puzzle too, but at the very least, you could look at their schedule and say, hey, except for maybe at Atlanta, at Kansas City, back-to-back weeks, and you got at Atlanta on a short week because you got to play Monday Night Football against the Ravens the week before, they have a digestible track for what should, in theory, be your hardest games because they're not at home.
To me, the big talking point that I don't think we've even acknowledged yet, if you're going to go from worst to first, that means that the Chiefs are not winning this division. Right.
Correct.
There's your Everest. Your Everest.
The Chiefs could very easily sit here and lollygag through the first half of the season, decide to start playing for keeps, flip the switch, which is what they kind of did last year.
Come on. Yeah, but even the year before they kind of did that, where they're at that point where they just kind of get to the postseason.
Right.
And so they'll have some hiccups along the way, and you can be like me and you can convince yourself that they're not that good and be silly for doing so, and they could be the 15th scoring offense in the NFL, and when playoff time comes, it's like they were never missed a beat from all their vintage moments, right? So
this team's, and to their credit, they started 6-1 last year, but then you look up and they're 8-5.
Right. Did it matter?
No. It won't matter. It won't matter this year either. They'll
There's
turn
a sense
the switch
of
on when they need to.
They're an inevitable team, right? That's just where they're at. And they've earned that. Good for them.
Yeah, I mean, there's nothing wrong with it. There's no qualifying tasks, and that's how you're able to put things on your Super Bowl rings, like the hardest path ever to winning a Super Bowl, because you beat a 2 seed and a 1 seed and another 1 seed, right?
So another thing that
you beat a 6 seed who you labeled as a 7 seed and still called it the hardest.
Kyle, are we more proud of being on that list together or being on the Urban Meyer wins list?
All right, we're going to do the NFC on the other side of the break. Make sure you stick with us.
You've heard us talk a lot about FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Well, we have a little something different for you. Now through September 22nd, all FanDuel customers can bet $5 and get a 3-week free trial of NFL Sunday Ticket from YouTube and YouTube TV. Then with a YouTube TV base plan, you'll be able to watch every regular season Sunday afternoon out-of-market game. All you need is a Google account and a current form of payment, and you can cancel at any time. Just visit FanDuel.com/lockedon to download America's #1 sportsbook.
The other news we hit this morning that we didn't really touch on, AJ Terrell. And they weren't a last place team, and we're not going to do the NFC South right now, but just acknowledging, how about some flowers for AJ Terrell getting the second highest cornerback contract after we did a show yesterday that talked about free agents to be and said, a lot of these guys are probably going to sign new deals and not going to make the free agency. And there you go. I'm glad we did that show yesterday, not today.
1 down, baby. 1 down.
Many to go. Let's go to the NFC East, where the Washington Commanders lost their last 8 games, finished 4-13, and were the last place team in the NFC East.
They gave up 518 points, Kyle Krabs.
They did. But they didn't score 266 like the Giants did.
What's worse? Is it worse to give up?
Giving up 518 points is bad. I mean,
but what's great, you got an offensive-minded coach in Dayball and a defensive-minded coach in Rivera, and we somehow do this.
I mean, nobody else was over 455 Arizona.
Yeah, I think. I mean, just comfortably as bad as you can be as a scoring defense.
Yeah,
comfortably. Holy smokes! Well, I guess that would explain why they changed everything over on the defensive side of the ball.
Yep. This is Jack Del Rio. Thanks for coming. Ron's going to do it. And then it was just as bad with Ron. And then we said, okay, changes everything as we can. Interesting team. I think they'll be competitive. I think their spending floor put them in a certain stratosphere where I have a hard time seeing them being 4-13 again. And you consider questions in Dallas with everybody waiting for their turn with a contract and some turnover on the offensive line. And in Philadelphia, can Nick Sirianni and Jalen Hurts go out to lunch and not beat each other over the head with whatever Philly cheesesteaks that they sit down and eat, whether it's at Pat's or Geno's? Could 10 be a winning number in this division, even though it was 12 the last couple of years?
Yeah, I'm concerned. I'm really concerned about Dallas, Kyle. I'm kind of concerned.
Great.
Yeah, I'm kind of concerned about Philly. But I mean, we're talking about a rookie quarterback here in Jayden Daniels. Everything is new. Probably is, in terms of a starting lineup, probably the most significant overhaul. And that's not necessarily a bad thing, right? Like when you're talking about a team that scored 329 and gave up 518, like, yeah, let's change it up. Still questions about this offensive line. I think there's still plenty of questions that in terms of pass catchers outside of Terry McLaurin. And then defensively, do we have enough horses in the stable? I think they have some nice pieces. I don't know that it's going to be enough to win this division.
I don't think it will be, but I think they might be they're at least the third out of the 5 divisions that we've done so far for me.
Yeah, well, we got some stuff coming. So
that's right. So let's go to the Chicago Bears.
Packers are in this division, Kyle.
Packers.
What are we talking?
17-0.
What are we talking about?
It's only a shame that you can't go 17-0 and then play in the wild card round, because then they could have the most wins in a season of any team in NFL history.
Right.
But seriously,
what would happen if this is a Chris Schubert moment here? What if the Packers and Lions both went 15-0-2 and they tied each other both times?
Why would you ask that?
Because in honor of Chris Schubert.
I don't see what the
well, because then one would be a wild card team, right? Because there's only one.
Oh,
yeah. That's okay. Now you're like, why would you?
Yeah.
Joe, like, what the hell are you doing? No, that's what I mean. What's our path to get the most wins in the history of the NFL? It's that.
Well, the Patriots went 16-0. And then
you're right. Then they have 15 wins. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, my galaxy brain.
I don't think we're gonna get there. I'm sorry.
I went to the wrong galaxy. All right, Bears.
Interesting team. I think Caleb could really blow the top off this thing. As far as they have talent in the skill group, do we? I don't know if we're gonna sit here and say Washington has a chance. I would at least say, if Green Bay and Detroit beat each other up too, they split. Chicago has breakthroughs on both. Like, it's a less than 10% chance, but I think they have they have a better chance, I think, to be a playoff team than Washington does. So I think that's what I'm trying to get to here.
Fact or fiction, the NFC North is the most likely division in the NFC to send 3 teams to the playoffs.
That's probably fact.
Right.
I think I would probably pick 3 teams. I'd probably pick 3 teams from there, and I'd pick 2 from the West.
Right. Yeah, I'm not going to predict it to happen for Chicago. But like you said, if Caleb Williams realizes his potential very quickly, the defense, builds upon what they did last year. Yeah, I think.
Would you feel differently if they closed the Matt Judon trade?
Yeah, I think that would help them a lot. I think they're a piece on the defensive line away from really being a defense that I think could be one of the better ones in the league.
Yeah.
But
were you surprised by the restraint that they showed there with that? I don't know if you saw the clips from Hard Knocks or anything like that.
No, I didn't see that.
They were not going to do a deal for Judon unless Judon agreed to terms on a contract extension before the trade was done. And Atlanta didn't, and that's why he's in Atlanta.
Really? And Judon's messaging about not, extending in Atlanta was I thought he was pretty candid. He's like, they don't know anything about me. They shouldn't commit to me long term. So it's interesting, right?
Yeah.
All right. Keep pounding.
Carolina? No.
I think what Carolina has going for them is I don't really like a lot of this division. And so that's going to be helpful. And Carolina, I think, has improved the floor of their roster. Their offensive line is better. I like some of what they did on defense. I don't know that they have a lot of depth on defense. I'm still concerned about the pass rush and corner on defense. But if Bryce Young becomes a player that they drafted to be number 1 overall in year 2 in a more stable environment, they got a puncher's chance. Especially because the team that I think is most likely to win this division is Atlanta. And is Kirk ready to go?
Yes.
All right, if Kirk's ready to go, then I think it's their division. I still think I think that they will be last, but I think Carolina's got a better chance than New England.
Yeah, and I would say Carolina's definitely got a better chance of not finishing last because the Saints, with their injuries and the offensive line and lack of depth on defense, they are very thin. And dude, how about Dennis Allen talking about Kendrick Miller? You should catch that yesterday.
I did.
So I don't know if he can learn the system because I haven't seen him play.
So obviously I don't think that's good of Dennis Allen to say that.
Yeah, it was not great.
But at the same time, you hear people talk all the time about coaches not being straight shooters. How many times do you think this guy was asked about Kendrick Miller? He's like, guys, he can't learn the playbook. I know he's talented. He can't do what we want him to do. But you give him at least a little bit of
yeah, I give him some grace there.
Right. Still shouldn't have said that. There's another other way to say it. He's Kendrick is a super talented player, and we need to continue to work on his retention of the system and making sure that he can execute with consistency. That's all you got to say, right?
Yes. I have a question with Carolina. Has there ever been a team that was 4th in defense in yards and 29th in points scored?
It's a fact. I'm aware of this. I don't think it's ever happened. I'm aware of this with Carolina. My thought is on this. They just didn't get any help from their offense ever.
Right.
They were just left high and dry all the time. Short fields. Because that defense was tough. But like at some point you can only pull so much weight.
And they were 23rd in rushing yards allowed, and they were 3rd in passing yards allowed. And that's because they got behind in games and couldn't do anything.
Yeah, the game scripts tell the story of those stats, right?
Yes. But it's just, I remember hearing the stat often all offseason. Well, Carolina was a top 10 defense last year, top 5 defense last year. And I'm looking at the points scored, it's like, yeah, bottom 5. They also only generated 11 turnovers on the season, so they were dead last in turnovers forced defensively. So here's hoping they can be a little bit more of a complementary team, and if they are, Tampa, they've kind of been floating. They're 500 the last 2 seasons, even though they won the division each the last 2 years. And we played 17 games, and they're still 500, so they're 17-17. Saints get dicey. I think Atlanta is too far ahead of them, especially with the moves that Atlanta has now made. They locked in Terrell. He should be locked in for the season. They signed Justin Simmons. They traded for Matt Judon. That's a lot. So I'll pick Atlanta, but Carolina, I think, cannot be the cellar dweller for sure.
Right.
Then the Cardinals. Year 2, Jonathan Gannon.
I think the Cardinals are going to be a respectable team. I don't think they're going to be a threat to win this division. And I still think they're probably going to finish last. But I think this is a team that can really run the football. And I think that Kyler Murray will be in a better position to run this offense. Weird circumstances, being hurt with a transition at play caller and a lot of new pieces around him. But I think they can run the ball. I think their defense will be better. I don't think they're going to be a pushover. I think they'll win 6 to 8 games.
Lean 6, and it's because of the schedule.
Okay.
First 10 weeks.
I'm aware of some of that, yeah.
At Buffalo.
Right.
Home against the Rams. Home against the Lions. Home against Washington. At San Francisco. At Green Bay. Home against the Chargers on Monday night. Short week at Miami, 1 o'clock. Home against Chicago, home against the Jets. First 10 weeks.
Tough.
Very challenging. But then you're at Seattle, at Minnesota, home against Seattle, home against New England, at Carolina, at Rams, home against San Francisco, week 18, with San Francisco potentially not having anything to play for.
So can I find the 6 wins?
Go ahead.
Commanders. Gosh. Chargers. Bears.
Bears. You see, to beat the Bears?
I don't know. I've got to find wins somehow.
Okay.
Patriots, Panthers. How many is that? Is that 6?
5.
Gosh.
Split with Seattle.
Yeah, I think it's possible. 7 wins.
6 to 8.
That's what I said.
I'd lean 6. And it's, again, I think they have a lot of positive momentum. They also, you look at that, especially on the defensive side of the ball. What are they? Gannon, they allowed more points last season than any season in franchise history. And they got a lot of young players. And they got a lot of day 2 picks that are going to be potential starters. And Darius Robinson in the mix. So they just have a lot of youth. They still feel like they're another year away. They kind of feel like when the Houston build started is what I feel like they are.
That's a good way to put it. Especially on defense, man.
They just had so far to go.
Right.
That I don't think they're quite there yet.
Thanks, Steve Kime.
Thanks, Steve. So the order 1 through 8. Can we come to consensus here? Do we agree Cincinnati's 1?
Yeah.
2, Chicago?
I was going to say Bears or Titans, wouldn't you say?
Yeah, so 2. You more excited about Caleb?
Yeah, 2 is the Bears.
Okay, so 2's the Bears, 3's the Titans. 4's the Commanders?
Man. Only because Patrick Mahomes is in the AFC West.
Right. And then we'll put the Chargers 5.
Yeah.
We'll put the Panthers 6. I'd go Panthers 6, Cardinals 7, Patriots 8.
Yeah, I'm with you. I like it.
All right. There you go. Where's the first outlook for the 2024 season, which starts 2 weeks from today? I'm Kyle Krabs. He is Joe Marino. We appreciate you guys for checking out the show. Make it a great rest of your day. We are out of here.